Easy Meat by John Harvey. Chapter 2. I don't want anyone to get too carried away about this, the head of geography said, wriggling out of his anorak as he came into the staff room. But there was a rumored sighting of a lesser spotted snipe earlier this morning. In the general vicinity, is that? Asked one of the math staff, glancing up from the crossword. Or actually, on the premises, apparently somewhere in the vicinity of the toilet's natural habitat. We ought to put a sign on the notice board, perhaps. Must be quite a few members of staff who have never had the chance to see one at close quarters. After all, I don't suppose he will be here long. Difficult to predict. The head of geography said, the migratory habits of the snake. From her seat across the room, where she was vainly trying to get another set of English folders marked before the bell, Hannah Campbell didn't think it was so funny. The last time Nicky Snape had showed up in her class, a perfectly decent lesson on haiku had been fatally disrupted in less time than it took to count to 17. Then again, she knew that if Nicky weren't in the school, the chances were he was getting out himself into even more trouble, adding to the list of offenses and misdemeanors. That even in this catchment area was truly impressive. She knew all of that, but even so, Hannah sighed as the bell sounded, assigned a mark to the open folder, capped her red Uniball Micro Deluxe, and climbed to her feet. Another day. Nicky was letting a couple of the younger kids examine the label of his black cotton Hugo Boss shirt. Not the right size for his skinny frame, but it was difficult to be particular when you picked up clothes the way Nicky did most of his. Today he wore it loose, so that was fine, unbuttoned over a black shirt that had been yanked high to hide as much as it could of the burns which spread up from his chest. His black denim jeans turned over at the waist. On his feet were Reebok trainers, scuffed and coming away at one heel. They would have to be replaced. Snape, what the fuck are you doing here? One of the other youths asked, straggling into the building. They begged me, Nicky said, all of them down on their hands and knees. Yeah, but you are here anyway. So what about Macbeth and the witches? Hannah Campbell asked. Do you think he believes them or what? Yes, of course he does, said a girl near from the front. Okay, why? 'Cause he does? Yes, but why? I mean, why would you? Would I? What? If you were on your way home across the forest. Miss, I don't go home across the forest. If you were walking across the forest and just past the park and ride, you saw these three weird old women. Tots, shouted somebody. Scrubbers, prostitutes. One of the lads at the back jumped up and stood beside his desk, hand extravagantly on hip. Hey, Macbeth, duck, looking for business? All right, Hannah smiled and allowed the laughter to subside. Let's get back to the question. If you were stopped by three people you didn't know and who looked pretty strange into the bargain, and they told you that something was going to happen in the future, would you believe them? Depend what they said, miss. All right, Wayne. And why's that? If they said that what you wanted to hear, miss, you'd believe them. Yeah, like winning the lottery, 7 million. That bloke right shot himself 'cause he never bought the winning number. He couldn't know the winning number, stupid. Yes, he could, 'cause it was the one he picked every week, only this week he never did. Daft sod. Okay, said Hannah. Calm down a minute and let's think. Isn't what happens in The Witches and Macbeth a bit like What you have just been talking about? There is no lottery in Macbeth, miss. No, but it is about getting what you want most in the world, isn't it? Becoming king, all that glory, all that power, all your dreams come true. Never happens, miss, does it? A girl off to the side, this time flicking her hair away from her face with a bureau. Dreams coming true, ain't that? Do you mean in the play or ever? In real life, say, ever? That bloke someone said from the near door. The one as worked in the factory, won all the money and couldn't cope with it. But back to Pakistan. Should have took all his mates, family, Faisal along with him, Nicky said. It was the first time he had spoken during the lesson, happy fiddling with the Casio digital diary he had pocketed on his last visit to Dixon's. I can't go back, clever Faisal called back, 'cause I have never bloody been. Right, Hannah said firmly. We all have no more of that. And then, taking a few steps towards Nicky, what do you think, Nicky? Do you think there is one of the things Shakespeare's trying to get us to think about? What happens when we get what we want most? Nicky pushed a few buttons on the keyboard of the diary, and the day of the week came up in French. Why didn't she leave him alone and ask somebody else? Nicky, do you think he's saying something about ambition in this play? Fuck knows, I'm sorry. I said I don't know. Why don't you know? Nicky pushed the pocket computer across the desk. If he wanted anyone to understand what he was on about, he would have written in normal English, shouldn't he? But he did, the normal English of his day. Yeah, but that's not our day, is it? It's not now. If you expect us to read it, why doesn't someone put it into proper English so we all can understand? Yeah, miss, someone called out. Or give it subtitles, then stick it on the channel 4. How many of you think that Nick is right? Hannah asked. Shakespeare would be better translated into contemporary language. A chorus of shouts suggested that many did. All right, but if we did that, what we would we lose? Nothing. All that lousy spelling, words you can't understand. Yes, Hannah said. You'd lose the words, you'd lose the language. In fact, you wouldn't really be Shakespeare's at all. Loud cheers then. Story would be the same, miss. I know, Wayne, but why don't you? But don't you think the reason we still bother with Shakespeare after all this time is not so much the stories but the language he told them in? After all his actual stories weren't so different from anybody else's. In fact, he borrowed most of them from other people anyway. When did I? When I did that, miss, you wouldn't even give me a mark. I don't think John Shakespeare copied it out word for word right down to spelling mistakes. Laughs and cheers. Hannah glanced at her watch. How many of you have seen Pulp Fiction? About half the class. But almost everyone had seen some clips on TV, and Natural Born Killers, 2/3. Right, 2 films with quite a lot of violence. Not enough, miss. Bloodshed, violence, criminals, and murderers are as central characters, quite a lot like Macbeth, in fact. But tell me, apart from the basic stories, Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction and Oliver Stone's Natural Born Killers, what's one of the most obvious differences between them? John Travolta. Pulp Fiction's no longer. Pulp Fiction's longer. Natural Born Killers is crap. Hannah raised a hand for quiet. Isn't one of the most important differences in the dialogue the use of language? Isn't the Oliver Stone film all quick editing and TV effects, whereas Pulp Fiction is full of scenes with people just talking, like the bit where they are in the car going on and on about when you're in France, what you what do you call a Big Mac? In Reservoir Dogs, miss, when they are all sitting around the table, yeah, talking about Madonna. Right, Hannah said. That's it, talking. Language isn't that what Tarantino loves? If you took all the dialogue out of Pulp Fiction, that would change it so much, it wouldn't any longer be his film. It certainly wouldn't be as good, and if you took the language out of Macbeth, it would be over quicker. It wouldn't be as good either. It certainly wouldn't be Shakespeare. Before Hannah could say anything else, the bell had sounded for the end of the lesson, and everything was lost to a scraping of chairs, the clamor of private chatter, and the movement of 31 pairs of feet. Nicky, Hannah tried. Can I just have a word? But Nicky, like the witches, and had vanished without trace, as had Hannah's purse, which had been pushed down to the bottom of her bag between her annuity diary, and a Snickers bar she had been saving for break.